conversations. Let's have real conversations.
Get ready to stir it up.
Life events and everything in between. Let's go.
Get ready to stir it up.
No capping. If guests got you covered right up.
Get ready to stir it up. Stir it up.
Come on.
Get ready to stir it up.
Hi everyone, welcome to Stir It Up. In this episode, I have Dr. Mary Eshan. And Mary and I are going to be talking about if women can have it all in their lives. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Akua. Good to be here.
Good to have you.
Finally.
Finally. You know, it's interesting how many people I talk to about Stir It Up. And it takes a bit of a journey, but it gets to their turn eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah. Welcome.
So good.
So just to kind of set a bit of context, right? I was saying to a friend of mine the other day that this conversation is a conversation I can have all by myself, right? Just the conversation about, can a woman have it all?
Yeah.
And a part of me thinks that a woman can have it all, but it comes at a huge personal cost. And very often something has to give. Now, then I asked the questions about what does it mean, what does all mean, and so on and so forth. So I'll start off asking you the not so tricky question. Can a woman have it all?
And I'm going to throw it right back at you. What is all? You know, that's where I would start off with, because your all might not be my all. You know, we all have such personal needs, aspirations, hopes, dreams, and so on and so forth. So what I may want for myself may not be the next person's all. So I think it starts with one defining their all.
Yes.
And the odd thing is that you don't know this ever. You know, it keeps on changing. And for those of us who work with young people, you just realize, you know, when you listen to them talking, you're like, oh my God, I used to think like this. Thank God I don't think like this
that
anymore. Right? Just because you've had such an expansive experience that has allowed you to redefine who you are and what you really want and what constitutes all for you, you know.
So let's unpack all a bit in a generic fashion. So when you think about our social environment, there is a stereotypical all.
All, yes.
What would that stereotypical all be?
So I think that all, for a woman,
Yes,
you mean? For a woman, definitely being married is like the number one all. Gotta be married, and preferably in your 20s.
Okay.
Right? If you don't do this in your 20s, something is beginning to look wrong.
Yes.
And by your mid-30s, well, you know, clearly something is very, very wrong within our societal context. So being married is a thing. We cling to the prefix Mrs. So strongly. We love that. Somehow it makes us feel better about ourselves. I think having a profession for many, many people is an all as well. But probably even before profession is having a child. Yeah. So you get married, have a child. And then somewhere along the way, you're supposed to have a profession.
Yes.
I don't know that there's anything beyond these three big alls. Nothing comes to mind right now for women. Maybe owning your own business. It's funny when I think about it.
Isn't that a shame?
Isn't it? Because now I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't being content be an all?
Being happy.
Being happy.
Experiences.
Yeah. No, none of that. I don't hear people talking about that as if it's an all.
Yeah.
You know, it's the marriage, children, and then a profession.
And even a profession is not something that's big for for everyone,
No,
right?
it isn't.
But the first two definitely.
Oh, the first two you can't do without. In fact, some people have left the country because of that.
Yes.
I have friends who have moved away from this environment because the pressure was too much. And yet I've met young people as well who are embracing the other view, which is that it's not that important. And I'm thinking, I always ask them, who are your parents? Because for you to be bold,
to have that mindset.
Oh my God, for a young woman in her mid-30s to say, I'm not in a hurry.
Yeah.
My first question is, who are your parents?
And what are they saying? And how are they feeling?
Yes, how are they feeling about this? And almost always, that young woman comes from a home where there's an understanding that the all could be other things.
Yeah.
And especially I find that the young people I talk to who have that perspective, the dads are always supportive. It's the mums that they're trying to please.
Yes.
So it's almost like if mommy says, that's okay, take your time, then that's okay.
Yeah.
And one young woman, I remember just last year when I asked her this question, said, oh, I've got older siblings. They've all got kids, so nobody's hassling me. Their kids running all over the place. So nobody has thought
there are
for
enough
one
children
yeah, there are
to
enough
keep
children.
grandma busy.
Yeah, so she's not asking, when are yours coming and that sort of thing.
I'll segue a bit into the children element. I was having a conversation with a lady a couple of months ago, so probably in September, and I randomly met her. And she talked about how she'd always known she didn't want to have children. And I had said to her, knowing what I know now, and the level of investment it takes to raise kids properly, I do not think it's a selfish thing to say you don't want to have kids. And she says, hey, it's a taboo for me to say that. Like, how dare I say that?
How dare you? How dare you?
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? And you've dealt with kids for the last 30 odd years of your life, if not more, right? That investment to have a child.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Oh dear.
Pandora's box?
Yeah, big one. I have a friend who also never wanted to have children, and hers was more medical than anything, where she thought there's certain things she doesn't want to pass on to her children, and she had a rough childhood. So because of that, why would I want to bring that on somebody else? I'd much rather be the last of my line, and so on and so forth. Children are tough to have, tough to raise, and you never stop raising them.
Nope.
My dad still calls me, and I am well past 50 now, and dad still calls me and asks if I've eaten.
Yes.
And mom says,
Oh, yeah.
what time are you coming? Shall I make your favorite kokonte? They still treat you like a child. And I wonder if I will do the same, or maybe I already am and I don't know it. Yeah. So looking at that, you are, you have to really tell yourself the other side of it, the joys of having children. Around you, because otherwise then you'll feel quite disappointed. And not all children come back and say thank you. Or not every child shows gratitude. And I think just the essence of human nature is to do stuff for people, yes, and to feel good when they say thank you. Very few times are you okay with people not saying thank you. And you have to work hard not to feel that way. And children hardly ever say thank you. They are not wired that way. For women, not until we have our first child.
Do we realize the suffering?
And then you call mom and you say,
Kafra.
Sweet mother, hiya dear pa. So it's something that we need to be aware of and taught that this is not for gratitude. You're not doing this because it's a gratitude thing. You may be doing it for all sorts of reasons. First off, you've got to populate the earth. You've got to leave, replace yourself, on the earth. But also, maybe you've met that special someone and you want to share something with that someone. Having a home is a beautiful thing to share with someone. You built a home together, you bought a car together, you got a dog together or whatever. But having a child together is a deeply spiritual thing. And you look at that child and sometimes you see the man in that child.
Or you see the woman in that
Or
child.
you see the woman in that child. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing. And maybe there are certain traits you wish were not replicated, you know, in the person. But it's beautiful to see something that you have created together. So when you think about it like that, people's reasons for wanting to have children could vary. I think you think more deeply, obviously, about it the older you are when you have your children. But for those of us that it was like a fairy tale, I got married at 22, you know, what did I know? You know, I didn't think anything about all of these things that we're talking about. It was just, you know, you finish your degree, you get married, and you have a child. That's the natural sequence of things, you know. And I was sharing with a friend actually just yesterday that we were talking about postpartum depression. And I said, you know, I think I had that.
But didn't even realize that's what you were going through? Or did you realize that?
No, I didn't. At that time, I didn't. I knew there was something a little bit off. But it didn't last for long at all. It actually lasted just a few hours. And I'd been in labor for like 23, 24 hours, just beyond spent. And the ultrasound had said it was a girl. So I'm planning all the girly stuff, all my girly things. And then he comes out and he's a boy. And I'm like, no.
And you proceeded to have how many other boys?
2 more. I am a boy mom. I've given up. By the second one, I was like, forget about it. But I was so exhausted. And so they showed him to me, put him on me. I must have managed to crack a smile, but it wasn't deep within me. I couldn't find it. And then they handed him over to dad, and they did all the things that they normally do. And then I just turned over on my side and tried to sleep. I was like, what the heck just happened? And suddenly I'm thinking all of these things and I'm scared. And so I turned to the nurse and said, can I go take a shower? Something needs to come off of me. So I went, took a shower. It was wonderful. And I got back and I used to sleep on my tummy. Of course, for 9 months, had not been able to. And I was looking forward to that. Little did I realize, I thought that when the baby came out, your tummy went right back.
No, it takes a while, it takes a minute.
And so I came back, tried to sleep on my tummy. It wasn't happening. That pissed me off, right? And then I just cried and cried. And they said, do you want to see the baby? I said, no. And then I tried to sleep. Well, about 2, 3 a.m., in the middle of the night, I woke up with a start and terrified that someone had taken my baby away. And that was when something started happening from within me.
Like a swell.
A swell. And I ran to the nursery and I said, where's my baby? I must have looked crazy, but I just wanted to hold him, you know. And from that moment, all the other experiences, you know, just tell me that it is a sacrificial love, like you were saying earlier. And you do it, you should do it, not expecting gratitude. But we're only human, and our children hurt us the most. Sometimes we think our partners hurt us the most, but I think children can hurt you more than a partner can.
True.
Yeah.
So as I've listened to you, there are 2 big thoughts for me. The first one being that having a child is a huge sacrifice. As I've listened to you, when I think about having kids, I think about it from 2 perspectives. One is the depth of love. And for every new parent I know, I say your heart will crack wide open, right? And you feel a depth of love that you've never ever felt before. Because it's almost like I created this human being. And you'll continue to love this child and be there for this child, and they will be the center of your life for a long time, even when you don't get along.
Yes.
You know. But the second bit is the level of sacrifice you make for your child. It's financial. It's emotional. It's choosing them even over and above yourself. Even your career choices are centered around your child.
Yeah. Yep.
Even the choices that you make socially are centered around your child.
Everything.
How many times have we not heard someone say, I stayed for the children? Or someone say, I do this job because I need to put my kids through school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And so it's a huge personal sacrifice that you make for a solid 18 plus years, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying that now that I'm older, when I hear someone say they don't want to have kids, I don't think it's as selfish as I used to think it was. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not selfish at all, and you cannot begin to even imagine how someone feels inside and their reasons for saying that. As I've grown old, I've become a bit more forgiving. You know,
You cut them some slack.
Big slack. Less judgmental, less feeling of I know it all and I know what you must do and what is best for you.
You do not.
At all. At all. I let people be. If I'm asked my opinion, I can give it based on my own experiences.
And that's it.
And then that's it, because nobody can enter my space either and tell me what to do, you know.
So, taking the societal context where all is the family, so a partner, having kids, having a job, and just being happy, right? What is the cost for a woman to have it all?
I don't even know that I would call it cost.
What would you call it?
I don't know.
What is the sacrifice? What does she need to do?
But when you say sacrifice sounds like a bit of, there's loss in there, you know, that you've given up something. And I'm of the opinion that the paradigm through which you measure a lot of things determines how you then approach how to solve it, how to live with it, and so on. So if we say, what is the cost? You know, so let me give you a quick example. When you talked about even the professional choices that we make. My PhD is in biochemistry. I was headed towards being a research scientist.
And then?
And then kids happened. I can't say that I was totally passionate about being a research scientist. I loved science and I loved just discovering things, right? So I did it, kept going, figuring out that aha moment of, yay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, what happened. And then my family moved to Canada. We were in the States, my husband and I, studying for our graduate programs. And then when we finished, we were like, okay, where do we want to go to? At that time, we thought, we're not ready to come back to Ghana. We had met in England. We just thought, no, not there. And he had worked as a marine engineer on a ship that used to go to Vancouver and other parts of Canada. So he said, you know, Canada is really lovely. It's a cross between England and America. Not as crazy as America, not as dull, shall I say, as England. Yes. So sort of in between, maybe we should try that. And in those days, it was as easy as applying to the Canadian Embassy, being ranked on all sorts of, you know, areas, and then being called for an interview and so on and so forth. And we landed in Canada. We happened to arrive in Canada at the time when there was a recession, and so I couldn't find any proper research jobs. The one I got was with this company I was excited about. It was called Imosol. It's now defunct. But they were making artificial blood. And that excited me to no end because I'd been working on HIV and others during my research. You know, so I applied to them and went for the interview, and they said you would have to be at work by 6:30 and you won't close till about 6. Well, I had a 3-year-old son at the time. My husband was working as a maintenance manager at a soap making, you know, factory in Toronto. And how do I even manage that?
How do you juggle that?
So I said, I can't do that. You know, so here was I wanting to work with him or so, And yet not being able to, because I was, what's going to happen to my child? And my husband already had this job. So it's not like now mine was going to supersede his. So I'm driving around in my car, and you always have your CVs with you whenever you're looking for a job. And then I saw a sign, and it said Queensway Christian School. I thought, that's odd. You know, I hadn't seen that before, where a school blatantly says, I'm a Christian school. So being who I am, I stopped, and I poked around, and then saw a door that said office. So, okay, I'm gonna find out what's in here. Went inside the office, talked to the lady. I just said, I can teach chemistry and biology. Do you need a teacher? And she said, not really, not right now, but would you like to leave your CV? I said, for sure. So I left my CV, filled out a form, left it there, just drove off, didn't think much of it. Got a call the next week. The chemistry teacher had resigned.
Lucky you.
Went for the interview, got the job, paying ridiculously low, unbelievable. But they said, your son can attend here for free. And suddenly, it was a
bright opportunity for you.
It was.
Yeah.
Because now I get to drive to school with my child, and I close with him and go home. And the school happened to be very close to my husband's workplace. So instead of doing what most couples tend to have to do, which is to have two cars, because you're going crisscrossing across the city.
You could all carpool in one car.
In one car.
Yeah.
You know, and it was lovely. But that was not what I thought I wanted to do until after the first year of teaching. During the summer, I missed my kids. And I found myself, I had these boxes, these tote containers that I was, you know, preparing experiments, and I labeled them and all of that. I was really busy during the summer. And school was opening, let's say the first week of September. By mid-August, I was already in the school. I was getting ready, setting my lab
For September.
up. And so one parent saw me and said, Dr. Shen, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, I'm just coming to get ready. She goes, but school doesn't start for another 2 weeks. And I said, I know, I'm excited. You know, so there were little hints here and there that I love this thing. You know, I get to teach a subject I love, and I get to have an audience. I love that. Okay. And I get to be with kids, and I love that too. And slowly that was beginning to become a thing in my life. My son was happy, things were stable. So one could see that as maybe it was a cost. I made that choice because my child would have an opportunity to go to that good school. But it led me to who I am today, you know. So I don't see that as a cost. I don't even see that as a detour, you know. And
it's I think what's happened is it's become part of your journey now.
It has, and maybe because it's
positive. If it wasn't positive, you might have seen it a little differently.
I might have.
Yeah.
But I think I also worked to make it positive.
Yeah.
You know, and not to say that I have enjoyed every single year of my teaching life. There have been times when I'm like,
I know times when you haven't enjoyed it.
I'm like, stop it. I do not want to do this anymore, you know. But then there's always something that brings me right back. And, you know, a lot of times when I would complain to my husband and say, oh, I'm really tired of this, I'm tired of that. And he goes, so what would you rather be doing? And the scary thing is I don't know what I'd rather.
You can't think of anything else.
I can't. Well, I can think of lots of stuff because I'm that kind. I can do a whole lot of stuff. But I don't think they would bring me the kind of joy that teaching does and being with kids does and educating and seeing the future. So I don't see it as a cost. And if anything, maybe if it's a cost at all, I would say it's a cost in the short term. Okay. Right? Because I do remember feeling like, did I have to do a PhD to teach grade 6?
Got it. So maybe let me rephrase the question a bit. What are some of the things that women have to deal with in service of having it all? Yeah.
I think feeling the intangible, seemingly intangible feeling of not achieving. Right? And sometimes it depends on the kind of home that you come from and just your personal, you know, self. So not feeling like you've quite hit the mark. Sometimes not being financially stable enough to be on your own should something go awry in the relationship. And a lot of times, women give up a lot for their partners to do well. Always playing best supporting actress, and sometimes getting an award for it, but no, I didn't want to be best supporting actress. I want to be best actress.
Right.
So that feeling of always taking a backseat to someone, especially when that someone does not appreciate your backseatedness, that can be hurtful, that can be painful. And then sometimes even jabs coming from others who may think you've given up too much, and so you having to always pull back and justify it to yourself. And it comes back to what you were saying earlier about talking to yourself and saying these things to yourself, that sometimes that's what will get you to feel like you're going crazy a bit. Yeah.
So there's a lady I met a couple of years ago, and she had been doing really well for herself, traveled the world over, had a partner, and had 2 sons, one of them being on the spectrum. And one evening we sat down and had a bit of a conversation. And she was talking about the choice, the one thing she felt she had to give up, or the one thing that she felt had cost her a lot in seemingly having this happy life, was she had lost herself. Right? So she says that a lot of the things she does were in service of pleasing everybody else but herself.
It's a very female problem.
And often, even I have felt like that a lot in different parts of my life, right? Where you overextend yourself with work, you overextend yourself with your kids, you overextend yourself with your partner. And it's not because, it's mainly because you care about those things, right?
Yes.
I guess it comes to the point you make about if there is no gratitude and if you don't feel appreciated for it. But then again, if you do things expecting gratitude, expect to be fully disappointed every single time.
It won't happen.
Because you can't really control how someone responds to the things that you do for them, right? I have so many people who've, like, even with this podcast, who've supported me extensively, right? And I think about it and I'm like, I actively need to be grateful for that help that I get, because I couldn't have done it without them, right? But when she said that, there was a lot of reflection for me, because very often a lot of women give up so much and it builds resentment over time.
Yes. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I agree totally. That a lot of women do give up a lot. I don't even know whether they know what they've given up until that moment. There's always that moment. And then it hits you. And it usually happens when you're losing those things that you gave up a lot for, So whether it's the partner or a child who just is completely AWOL, and yet you've poured so much into them, into the relationship, that's what pulls you back to ask yourself,
was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Who am I? What have I done? But I feel as if we do have moments along the way that are not as drastic as that, where we ask ourselves the question, and depending on the tools you have available at that time to be able to navigate that question, where probably for me, the number one tool is support from the one that is around you, the partner that's around you, the friends that are around you. If you have that kind of support, a lot of the questioning that you have will lead to other stuff. Those moments when I have wondered, I must admit that One of my favorite verses that my mom and dad always used to, my dad is a pastor, and one of the verses that he always used to share with us, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord.
Plans for good,
Not for evil, plans to give you a future and a
an
hope.
Yeah, and to bring you to an expected end.
Yeah. And every time I felt like I have no clue what is going on, and I'm scared, and I'm looking at time passing by, and oh my God, will I do this? Will I do that? Will I be this? Will I be that? God, you know the plans that you have for me, and I need to rest assured in that. And this Christmas, I had a wonderful opportunity to share this with my youngest son, Jojo, who's about to graduate from university and doesn't know what he wants to do. He's enjoyed his university education. He has a multitude of skills, but he doesn't know what he wants to do. And I've got a little place up in the mountains, and it's high up enough that very early in the morning, the fog is just amazing. Literally, you can touch it. So we woke up in the morning, it was very foggy, couldn't see anything down below. And I said to him, why don't we take a walk around the property? So we did that for maybe a good hour and a half. And I pointed out to him plantain trees and coconut trees. And sometimes, I get shocked that, they eat plantain but don't know what the tree looks like. So it was quite a learning experience for him. By the time we got back to the cottage, we were standing on the deck, and the fog has cleared. And he goes, oh, wow, look at the villages down below. And I said, yeah, the fog has cleared. And I said, here's a lesson for you. In those moments when there's so much fog, right? Don't sit and stare at the fog and bemoan the fog that is there. Get up and walk around. Do something. Right? And I said, what we did, we walked around, didn't cost you anything, wasn't painful, none of that stuff. Fill up the time, because time is a beautiful thing. And time will eventually help clarify when the fog moves away, So each step of the way, those moments that just make it very difficult to realize who you are and what you're supposed to be doing, I think that one needs to just give oneself some time. And then, clarity should come. Clarity should come. But I think even if you're ever at that point where you're wondering, was it worth it? I gave up this for this. I gave up that for that. Even when what you gave it up for seems to have fallen apart, I think we have to rejoice in the growth. Rejoice in the growth. Your joy, your contentment, your feeling like you have it all should not depend on how people turn out. It should depend on how you turn out.
So it's a bit of perspective taking, where it's how you view the experience. Instead of looking at the experience as a negative experience, look at it as a growing opportunity and learning opportunity for yourself.
And I think that the negativity comes because, we're human.
Loss.
Yeah, when you pour into something, you're expecting a certain outcome. And you've already planned that outcome in your head. And then you don't get that. And so then you're unhappy, right? But if it's about you in terms of your growth, who you were before is not who you are right now, right? Like I said earlier, I'm less judgmental. I'm so happy I am less judgmental. Because I can remember myself being judgmental, and I couldn't have been that nice of a person. Maybe I hid it well, but I don't think I like myself as
don't
much
like that version of yourself as much as you like this,
I like this version,
better.
But I've had to grow through a lot of things, and not everything has turned out the way I thought it should, but I still feel like I have it all. Yeah. I've got what the world deems all, right? Yeah. And for that, I am blessed. I'm grateful.
But you do have more than that, isn't it? That's the other way to look at it.
Yeah. All the other things I feel really enhance whatever the world expects. Do you see? And I think that as I grow older as well, I'm expecting less from my alls, my traditional alls, right? And expecting less from them is allowing me to enjoy the other alls that I don't think we talk about enough.
Often, when you think about a woman having it all, there's a big part of it being around her being independent and self-sufficient, right? And there are some prejudices against women who are, independent. And the world judges.
Yes. Yep.
How do you think women who strive to have it all are judged by the world? And when I think about all, I'm not talking about the traditional all of, we've talked about, so partner, good job, children, friends, family, not that, and career. I'm not talking about so let's kind of have a basic construct. So there's the partner, children, job, friends, right? And that would be maybe the basic of the
Social
all.
status.
The social status, right? And social status, sorry. The question I have is, beyond that, there's also someone who's just content with herself, confident, happy, someone who is not relying on anyone else for validation. But, your validation complements her own confidence in herself, right? How are women who are that way inclined judged by society?
Oh gosh, in a myriad of ways. Harshly, for one of them, admiration, in another way, jealousy.
You literally opened my brain, picked it
pick them
out, and shut my brain again. Go on.
Yeah, lots of jealousy, and then awe, and there's awe and there's admiration.
Yeah.
Right. So many things, and again, it depends on where that person's coming from and how they perceive you. But almost always, it's harsher than not.
Yes.
And that again is because of our traditional systems where women are expected to depend on a man and be grateful that they have someone to depend on. And so if you've been able to break that dependency, then you're weird and you must be watched, and all that. And a lot of times I don't think we handle it well. Right? We probably handle it better the older we are. But when I meet young people in their 30s and 40s, and it's so odd that I call those people young people now. But when I meet them and they have it all, there seems to be a certain attitude that comes with it. It's a bit like Beyonce's, I think it is Destiny's Child song. The car I'm driving, I bought it. Dun, 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 dun.
It's a Destiny's Child song, yeah.
And it's almost with, there's pride that can turn into arrogance,
yeah.
And when you are not careful, then it gets into that arrogant strip there, then you're not attractive anymore.
Yeah.
You're not pleasant. No one wants to be around you.
Yeah.
Those who are around you have to be around you. That's why they are.
Yeah.
And I fear that a lot of us women tread dangerously close to that line. We don't know how to be independent with grace. And that can be a beautiful thing when you have grace attached to it, right? And whether that comes from a feeling of contentment, whether that comes from just accepting who you are, I'm not sure. But I think it's easier as you grow older, as things become clearer to you. But certainly you will not be welcomed with open arms, because it is not the way of the world. I mean, just one look at a Twitter post or a TikTok post or anything, and you find people saying, oh, I can't wait to run to the comments, because the comments are way more interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? And more than half are lambasting the person. And it could be for something as bland as, just I'm eating, and they have something to complain
it's like
about.
Eating, so what? Half of the world is hungry.
Exactly. They have to complain about something, you know. So you can't win at all, but I wish we could teach ourselves how to be independent with grace, where it is a beautiful thing. You're not ramming it down anyone's throat that I can buy my own car, I have bought my own house, I can raise my kids. Yeah, so what? I'm doing it, and that's fine. It doesn't have to look like, so men are useless. Yeah. I don't need a man in my life.
Absolutely.
And so on. It doesn't have to look like that. But sadly,
it tends to look like that.
It tends to look like that. And whether it's intentional, I don't know. You know, but it's sad.
I would say that it's a combination of things, right? A lot of the time, women get to a place where they have things, you know, there are these achievements. Mm-hmm. And once you hit that space, sometimes it's your way of feeling like, you know what?
I've done it.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And like you say, I love what you say when you say we need to be able to be independent with grace. Because that grace is what makes you soft.
Yes.
Is what still helps you maintain a certain level of femininity, right? Which is what you are, right? Unfortunately, maybe it's the experiences that put them in that box.
Yes.
I think, right?
You're right.
But I also think that at the same time, if we're going to let every experience we've had shape us negatively, then
Yeah, we wouldn't survive. Which I think, you know, is the reason why we need mentors. Yeah. You know, if we could normalize mentoring, but sometimes within that feminine space, there's so much competition, you know, because sometimes it seems as if there's very little room at the top. And the few who get there, they must guard it very
we put up the barricade.
Yeah, straight up. No one else should be able to enter. And so when things are being done ungracefully, it's very difficult to step in and talk to that person. And just so many times I see younger women and I think this is not going to end well, you know, and yet there is no peep of a crack for me to even enter and to advise, you know, and I find it sad. But these days I'm not as saddened by it because I think to myself that if I'm meant to be the one to step in and to say something,
the opportunity will
present itself, and I shouldn't weep for the whole world. Those that do come my way, I must make sure that I leave that impression on them. But we need some serious mentoring. We need to create safe spaces for women, you know, for them to be able to just be and to talk about themselves and to be a little bit selfish, you know, all of that stuff. And then you rein it in, you know, after a while. But that safe space has to be created. I remember this dating app that I was working on, and I chatted with you about it and so on. And I can remember the feedback from women over 50, and because in this app, when you sign on, you have to create a group that we call your ebusia, and that's your support crew. And you get to pick, you know, anyone. Could be your mom, your dad, your sister, your best friend, whatever. And women over 50, the overwhelming feedback was, could you create the ebusia for me? Because I don't want
people who know me to know that that's what
I'm looking for. I don't trust them. Maybe they'll go after the guy that I like.
No,
you know,
you're talking about going after the guy that I like. You know, it's so interesting. You have an experience where your friends, you know, gather around you, say, "Oh, this guy is not good enough. He shouldn't be the
I remember that.
And then before you know it, the moment you ditch the guy, there's someone, one of them saying, "Are you hungry? Should I send you some food?" You know?
And that's the thing that, you know, sadly is so prevalent. Yeah, it's so prevalent, and so it causes us to just close up
and clam up.
Yeah, so there's hardly any safe space, and where there are no safe spaces, we don't get to be ourselves and to be nurtured enough.
So final two questions, because I know we've run out of time. Just thinking about the 23-year-old out there who has all these dreams, has their whole life ahead of them, and wants so many things for themselves, but very different from what you wanted at that age and what I wanted at that age, right? What are some, if there were 3 tools or 3 nuggets we could give them for the future, and talking about having it all, what will those 3 nuggets be?
3 nuggets for a 23-year-old.
And I know you're a fish out of water here to a certain extent.
Okay, can I imagine being 23 and...
In 2024, yes, imagine that.
And 2024, gosh, that must be horrible.
It is.
Really horrible. I'm so glad I'm this old at this time. Yeah, there's just too much. There's too much in the world, but
information overload.
Too much.
Too many options, too many choices.
I think the first thing probably in one's toolbox, a mentor. Okay. Yeah, I think a mentor would be really important, and to put yourself in their hands and to say, mold me if I've got too many rough edges. Tell me how to.
How do you pick this mentor? Because I know so many grown-ups who make so many bad choices still.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
maybe more than one. Maybe more than one mentor. I've met these young women that just come up to me. Let's say I go and speak somewhere. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder why are they choosing me, right? Mm-hmm. And I've come to realize that it's a couple of reasons. They admire what I'm doing and that I'm happy doing it, because, come on, let's be truthful. Who wants to be a teacher, right? And in Ghana, who wants to be a teacher, right? So for me to stand up and say, I'm a proud teacher, I couldn't think of doing anything else, shoot me, but I will be a teacher today, tomorrow, forever, right? She admires that. Then there's someone who will say, I admire that you're able to stand in front of an audience and speak eloquently. Yeah. I love that about you. Yeah. And then somebody else too, it's not those things, but it's just you have an energy that they can't quite put a finger on, but they want to be close to that energy.
And sometimes just the association.
Just the association, yes, definitely. I think in Ghana, that's a huge bit. Yeah. They want to say, I know so and so and so, right? But you can have different mentors. I have different mentors. People
and for different things, I guess.
For different things, yes, for different things. And maybe sometimes it starts with one mentor who then says, I think you need someone for this part or that part. Because I think at 23, you have no idea what you need.
Okay, so 1 is mentor, 2?
1 is mentor. 2. Your toolbox. What would I say is a toolbox? A really good friend or some really good friends. That ability to be able to say, these are my people.
So community.
Community. You need community, very much so. And then I think, and that community can take all forms. I'm beginning to see church so much as a community for many people. It's not so much the spiritual thing that they may be looking for. It's community, and the spiritual aspect comes as a result of that. Okay. And then the third thing, what would the third thing be? Gosh, a sense of wonder, and I can't even tell you how to get that. But one has to have a sense of wonder where everything around you...
You question things.
You question things, you marvel at things, you charge yourself to have one new aha moment every day. Like, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. It keeps you fresh.
Is that a curiosity?
Yes, a certain spirit of curiosity, the gift of curiosity too, I can say. I think those things because there's just so much happening right now that I don't think your typical 23-year-old can say, oh, maybe I need to study how to use technology to be successful. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
But all these other things I've talked about are just swirling around, and yet we don't grab onto them. And we need that to maintain some sort of sanity in our lives. Yeah, so off the top of my head, I'm sure I'll think some more once.
Oh, absolutely.
This is over.
Absolutely. I mean, I love what you say, and I think that there's a lot in having it all as a woman and seeing yourself beyond being a mother, a wife, and a caregiver, and just a professional. I think there's an element of personal fulfillment.
Yes.
Because we are not here to just walk this earth.
No.
And just, just go through it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we've all been blessed beyond measure, right? So in that blessing, how do we then take it and then have joy?
Yes. Yes.
And it's also in you as a woman identifying the things that are important to you and giving them the time. And maybe it might be in your family.
Yeah.
But know that at some point in time the kids go away.
Yeah.
And so what do I replace that with?
Yeah.
And begin to identify some of those things
That's right.
earlier on than leaving it till much later.
Because you can lose those things that traditionally are the have-it-alls, right? You can lose that partner, whether through a separation or through death. You can lose a partner. Sometimes there are people living together who've lost each other.
Even though they're living together.
Even though they're living together and they're married. So that loss can happen, and then what do you quote-unquote replace it with? Like I said, children can move away. Right now, all my 3 sons are away from me.
Empty nest.
And very empty nest, and they are living in 3 different countries. And while sometimes I'm like, oh, I miss them and all that, I am so happy I have raised independent men who, and men tend to be, I agree, but I've raised them to just do what they gotta do, wherever they gotta do it. Don't worry about mommy being so far away, because thank God with FaceTime and all of that, you're never far away, So those elements there will always keep you grounded and able to maneuver every single day.
Final words.
Final words. Final words. It is a blessing, definitely, to feel like the traditional alls you've ticked the boxes on, because you face less harassment from the world. They're not questioning your every move and all of that, but that can also lead to a sense of complacency, where those are the things that you gild yourself with and they make you feel good, but those can all be lost in the wink, right? And so I would love it if all of us spent time working on ourselves, finding other alls, that we can
that are centered.
That are centered. And it's not a selfish thing, because I think when you have those other alls, you become a better person. You're a better partner, better friend, better parent, when you've got those other alls, like contentment and so on. So we should strive for that. And for us as women, not to fear other women, right? Have your antennas out, for sure, because, some people will never change, but to be open to have certain people in our lives and to embrace love in all its forms. Love just doesn't come through the traditional sense, what we've thought, and love can come from all sorts of quarters and be expressed in all sorts of different ways as well.
Cocktails.
Yes,
1
sir.
minute. So, cocktails.
Yes.
2 things. So stir it up first. You're supposed to tell me what you think you're tasting. That's the only requirement. And in this one, you're only allowed to tell me one thing.
One thing.
You just need to get one thing right, because there are only 3 things in it.
I suck at games like this, honestly.
Let's see. Not a brand, but tell me the flavor you taste.
There's passion fruit.
There's passion fruit. Stir it up.
Woo! First time I didn't suck at a game.
Anyway, thank you so
Awesome.
much for coming.
Thank you.
It's been lovely having you, Mary.
Thank you so much. Good to talk about stuff like this. Yeah. Gets one to think deeply
It does.
as well. So congratulations on stirring it up.
Stirring it up.